I think it's an interesting time because everybody wants to believe it's going to be okay, and the tech run and the major indices are just going to go on and on forever. But inflation is very real, and never in history have we been able to print this kind of money and avoid inflation. So maybe they have a trick up their sleeve that we don't know about, but if history is any indicator of what we're in for, I think it could be a pretty wild ride on the inflation. From my perspective, that's why I really like gold.
Welcome to another RTD interview. Today, I'm excited to have first-time guest, Mr. Kevin Smith. He's the CEO of Gold Mountain, a Canadian exploration and development company. And today, he's joining us to share his thoughts on the global economy, the precious metal sector, as well as investment opportunities in the exploration space. So, Kevin, welcome to RTD interviews.
Thanks so much for having me, Mike.
Yes, I appreciate you taking time to join me here. Looking forward to find out more about Gold Mountain. And before we dive into that in more in-depth detail, and so for those who may not know you, give a little bit of your background and how you've arrived at this point in your career.
Yeah, so my background is real estate development and finance, mostly on the commercial and industrial side. And I met a gentleman named Tukey Angus, who's a bit of a mining legend here in Vancouver. Him and I had a lunch and we decided we were going to try to do some deals together. And Gold Mountain Mining is my first mining deal, but obviously being shepherded by someone with that experience. This is our first deal out of the gate. So, good response from the market, and really excited to be in the space and bring the Gold Mountain story.
All right, sounds good. Well, I appreciate you for sharing that. And so this show here, the title of the show is Rethinking the Dollar. And so a lot of the viewers here are very concerned with the future as current and future outlook of what we call the dollar. And so I want to get your thoughts on the current environment we're in, because I think it's it's the foundation to the importance of owning gold and silver and other precious metals. And it happens to be about the excessive inflation that we're experiencing already in the commodity space, with all-time high for the most part in copper, iron, lumber. All those other commodities are reaching extreme highs right now. What are your thoughts on that? What is that telling you? Are we experiencing, excessive inflation, borderline hyperinflation type of environments or whatnot? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think we're coming off some baseline numbers where the economy was strong in our month-over-month comparables now. So the excuses are really going to start running out quickly here with these increases in inflation. Real rates obviously are way down and negative at the moment, and I think it's an interesting time because everybody wants to believe it's going to be okay, and the tech run and the major indices are just going to go on and on forever. But inflation is very real, and never in history have we been able to print this kind of money and avoid inflation. So maybe they have a trick up their sleeve that we don't know about, but if history is any indicator of what we're in for, I think it could be a pretty wild ride on the inflation front.
Right, I do agree. And then also, speaking of inflation, I think last week the numbers came out and overshot expectations a little bit. But then again, the central bankers, Jerome Powell, Janet Yellen, said that it's transitory. It's going to be temporary in nature. And so when you hear stuff like that, it really makes me wonder. But at this current moment, can we really trust and believe what's coming out of the central banker and politicians' mouths at this point?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when they say it's transitory, I don't know how that's going to work. They're increasing wages. You hear about people being paid $100 to go to a Wendy's interview, and then they're getting a bump in their wage. I don't know how that's going to be transitory, and you're going to unwind that. And labor is a huge part of all the costs that go into everything that we buy every day. So, I am a little bit skeptical, to say the least, on the transitory piece. And then, from my perspective, that's why I really like gold. When I got into this project in May of 2019, gold was around $1,200. People thought we were crazy. But we've been sort of seeing an opportunity for tailwinds in the gold market for a while now. And with all this loose monetary policy, low interest rates, and printing of money, I think this is an environment where the dollar could really get hurt, and you want to have a hedge against that, in my opinion.
Right. I agree. And then you mentioned loose monetary policy. And just to think of that, like, I guess as of last week, part of the current administration, they're looking to have a $6 trillion infrastructure plan to help get our economy back up and running. So that right there lets me know that there's going to be problems ahead, which could be very favorable for metals, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way we throw $1 trillion around now, it's nothing, is pretty incredible. I think they printed something like 25 or 30% of all US dollars were printed in the last 12 months or some crazy stat like that. And if they're just going to keep printing and printing and it's going into infrastructure projects, as you highlighted, yeah, obviously mining and metals is going to be a great place to be because I think there's going to be a very real shortage. And mining is a slow turning wheel. You can't just fire on a copper project or a silver project or a gold project. It takes time. And if we have this massive influx of capital chasing all of the same available supply, I think there's going to be a lot of upward pressure on the prices.
Right, I do agree. And so you mentioned about the supply issue. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on, of course, last week. I like to cover a lot of relevant stories that are very timely because it really highlights the importance of metals. But it looks like the United States Mint last week referenced that there's a global supply shortage of silver. And I'd assume that has to also impact the gold markets as well. What are your thoughts on that? Is this the beginning of something that could be brewing with there being silver supply shortage from the Mint?
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice for them to finally recognize that there's a supply shortage. And I think there's going to be even more of a supply shortage, with Basel III coming in and them looking to unwind some of these synthetic shorts on gold and silver. I think that could have a really interesting effect. I believe that comes in at the end of the month for European banks and then the UK banks towards the end of the year. So, yeah, I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of really bad manipulation in the precious metals markets. I mean, you see the COMEX took a 3-day weekend and then they came back this morning and started pounding on gold and silver as soon as they got to their desks. But yeah, I know. I think the shortage is very real. And again, as I said before, mining is a slow turning wheel. You can't just start a mine overnight. It takes a lot of infrastructure, a lot of engineering, a lot of planning, and if there's a shortage now, imagine when the debasement of the US dollar really starts kicking in. I think it's going to be a race to get as much physical as possible because who knows what's coming down the line, right? You're seeing China increase their US reserve currency requirements while they're importing as much gold as possible. So you're going to see a strain on the availability of US dollars, which I think is going to force them to continue printing to feed the repo market. And then also with China, hoarding gold as much as they can. I think it was a record number of imports out of Switzerland last month. It seems like the rest of the world is hedging. You're seeing Russia do the same. So yeah, I mean, we feel well positioned to be in the gold space, and we're looking forward to taking advantage of some of these margins that are available right now with these gold prices elevated where they are. And in our opinion, long-term tailwinds behind the price of precious metals.
Right. And that's going to be very interesting because, we were talking about the supply shortage and things like that. But is it more so a supply shortage or just the need to come into realization of the true price discovery of what the metal should be? Because I think there's more than enough. It's just a matter of the price doesn't reflect the true value of the metals themselves. So what are your anticipation for possible prices if things were to really ramp up? What are some ballpark figures that you think would be ideal given the current environment we're in?
Yeah, I think near term, I think 1960 is a very realistic target in the month of June. And then beyond that, I think new all-time highs by the end of the year. And depending on where the economy is at, again, now that we're back to realistic baseline numbers and we're not using the COVID suppressed numbers for comparables, I think you could really see some interesting upside pressure in the gold price. US dollar and bonds, there seems to be some weakness in the bond yields there. And then all of that's going to be good for precious metals. So, I like $2,500 as a realistic target. I think that's very much realistic, and I think it could go beyond there. But it all depends on the manipulation, right? I mean, they have to unwind these synthetic shorts, in my opinion, and they have to make it. If you want to short it, there's got to be physical available to short. like a stock. Right now, this naked shorting leverage, whatever it is, 500, 1,000 to 1, however they're doing it. How do you have real price discovery in those circumstances?
All right, that's very true. Now, I'm curious as far as there's been, I think gold and silver in particular would have had already surpassed their prior all-time highs had there not been new asset classes that have been brought into the mix with the whole digital asset space. And so that's definitely stolen a lot of thunder, I think, from the actual price discovery of gold and silver in particular. But yet there was a campaign, I think, that started maybe a year ago where there were a lot of big institutions saying, dump gold, it's archaic, it's old, nobody uses it, and jump on board with the digital gold, that new modern version, I guess, referring to Bitcoin. What are your thoughts on that? Can both of those coexist in the same environment, or there's nothing like the real thing in the form of actual tangible real gold, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think cryptocurrencies are going to have their place. I don't know to what extent, and I don't know if they necessarily need to be stores of value. But I do see the relevance of the technology of the blockchain. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be placing a large bet, I want to go with the thing that's got 5,000 years of history, that it can be relied upon as, arguably the greatest inflation hedge there is available. So, while I do see relevance in blockchain in the cryptocurrency space, I think, that's got to be a small part of someone's portfolio given the volatility. And you gotta place your money in a bit more of a safe bet if we're talking large sums of money here. If you want to speculate and play with a little bit of side money, I think there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of potential excitement in the crypto space. But yeah, I mean, I own a gold mine, so where I'm putting my money.
Very true. Speaking of which, let's dive into that because I'm curious to find out more myself. So, Gold Mountain, give us a little bit of the background. You mentioned that I guess 2019 is when you first thing came about. Give us some insight as to what's going on up there.
Yeah, so this is a mine that's produced twice in its history at an average of 97 grams a ton, which is huge. So we went in there. It came with 127,000 meters of drilling. There's a decline in place. There's a bunch of infrastructure that's already on site. Probably about 40 or 50 million dollars in historic spend. We went in, put a $1 million down payment, and have a $9 million interest-free loan with Equinox Gold Corp. We've gone in and aggressively drilled it out, increased the resource. When we took on the project, it had 375,000 ounces, and the market really thought it was sort of finished, and that's all it was ever going to be. We've now increased it with one drill program to over 800,000 ounces, and we're looking to increase it further beyond 1 million ounces by fall. And then from there, just continue aggressively drilling it out. That's the exploration side of this company. And then on the production side, because it's already been a mine, it's already permitted, we're able to really fast track it back into production. So we're going in and we're going to be producing at 20,000 ounces a year, which is pretty small, but that's a strategic number to start. If you stay under a certain threshold of 75,000 tons a year, the government allows you to get into mining without an environmental assessment. So we're going to get into small scale mining, which is going to give us cash flow so that we can continue expanding the business in a non-dilutive fashion, because most mining companies just raise money endlessly and dilute their shareholders out. We don't want to do that. And then we'll expand that up into a 65,000 ounce scenario by Q3 of 2024. So we're through all of the permitting portions with the government. We're just waiting on our final permit here, which is expected in the month of June. So a lot of excitement there. We received our construction permit already, which gives us a lot of confidence in our approval of the permit. And we've got our construction team on site working as we speak. July, August will be waste rock mining. We hit pay dirt in September. We'll be delivering ore to our ore purchase partner, who is New Gold, in October. And then our first cash flow comes in November. So a lot of near-term catalysts. It's a little bit different mining story than a lot of people are used to hearing. This is more operations and fundamental and a real business approach, as opposed to some of the more promotional companies you see out there. And yeah, we're really excited to get the Elk project back into into production.
Interesting. Now, so you mentioned a lot of different projects going on at the same time. That share with us a little bit of the current team you guys have. Some of the potential investors or whatnot that's already on board, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're a very operations focused team. So you got myself. My background is, as mentioned, real estate development and finance. So I'm helping on the capital markets and fundraising side of things. Our COO, Grant Carlson, and our president, Ron Wu, they're both mining engineers who built mines like this here in British Columbia. So they have a lot of really good experience in not only building, but operating mines like this, and then also getting them permitted. So a lot of experience on that side. And then our strategic advisory board, we have a lot of really strong guys around us. I mentioned Tukey Angus earlier. He's a bit of a mentor to me, and he's one of our advisors helping me on the capital market side. He's had a couple multi-billion-dollar exits. So anytime you can have that kind of experience helping a young management team is huge. And then Quinton Henning. Dr. Quinton Henning is, a pretty famous economic geologist in the mining space. He's had a bunch of really big wins. He tried to buy this project 5 or 6 years ago unsuccessfully. When he heard we bought it, he came in and he said, I'd love to be a part of it. I'd love to help you guys. So he helped us raise some money in February. So we got lots of cash in the treasury right now. And he's also helping us with our exploration plan and getting this back into production. So, having a guy like that vet the project and help us develop it is huge for credibility around the project. We also brought in JDS Energy and Mining, who is a world-renowned underground mining team, to do a pre-feasibility study for us, just to really lock in our economics. We just did a pre-economic assessment, which came out with a $231 million Canadian NPV after tax with a 5% discount. So, I think the market was really impressed by those numbers, and people are starting to understand the scale. But we really feel this is just the beginning. There's 8 other zones on the property that have already been drill tested. They're ready for maiden resources to be delineated, and we're going to go in there and aggressively drill this out and show the market that we can turn this into a 2 to 3 million ounce resource and get it back into production for a really low capex and what we feel is a record time.
Interesting. Now, so you guys are already trading now. Give us your ticker symbol and whatnot, and how more people can find out more detailed information as to what's going on.
Yeah, we trade on the TSX under GMTN, and then stateside we're on the OTCQB under GMTNF. And then we're very active on Twitter, Gold Mountain Mining. We're active on Instagram. We have a lot of digital marketing and videos if people want to get up to speed with what we've been up to. And then also gold-mountain.ca is our website. Lots of information on there that we're constantly updating.
All right. Well, Kevin Smith, it's great to hear about what's going on in Gold Mountain. Definitely looking forward to finding out more, and definitely having you back on later to find out the progress as we go throughout the rest of this year. So I'll also include a lot of that information beneath this video as well. But are you accessible for potential investors to probably reach out to you directly, or are you able to be reached out to directly?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at the bottom of our press releases, my personal email and phone numbers on each one of them, and I welcome phone calls with investors. Love chatting with people, telling them about the opportunity, and hopefully getting them involved, because we feel like there's a lot of upside potential still.
All right. Well, Kevin Smith, thank you for taking time to join us here on RTD Interviews to share some insight as to your projects, as well as the current environment we're in, and the need to get physical, as well as have exposure to the exploration and mining space. So once again, thank you for joining us on RTD Interviews.
Thank you so much for having me.